Now we're all live. We're all there. Hey, how is everybody on this fine day?
So far, so good.
So
We'll,
far,
we'll
so good.
see. You guys have a lot more. I don't know how statistics work, but it's a lot earlier for you. So you've got a larger numerator or
A smaller
denominator.
sample size.
There you go, something like that. You get there, or to put another way, you have a longer span of time to not screw it up.
Oh,
And so
I like
as
that
the
way.
day goes on, the risk is higher that it's going to screw up, or maybe it's
But a
the opposite. I
larger
don't know.
percentage
I mean,
of my
that's
day so far has been spent with you guys. So it's been a pretty good day.
that's nice. Yeah,
It's
that's
only
a good way to
uphill
look
from
at it.
here.
My kids are good at like changing perspectives on things,
Uh-huh.
and like saying, well, you could look at it that way, but you could also look at it this way. So
That's
yeah,
right.
like that's I like how you did
And
that.
the way that they look at it always means candy now.
Have you met my kids?
That's right. I've
It
met
seems,
kids. I
it
once was
seems
one.
like, yeah, I remember those times. And what we're gonna do today is we're gonna teach Coté some stuff. Actually, Corby's gonna teach us both some stuff. And as always, I like to say, when you come to my house for dinner, if you leave hungry, that's your fault. So today, especially if you're on the live stream, ask your questions. We'll do our best to get them answered. Don't leave hungry. Corby, are you ready to rock?
I think I am. I'm ready to rock
All right.
and role play.
Roll. Let's just jump right into it. Let's just
Good
jump right
grief.
into
That was fantastic.
it. And if you're joining us live, say hi. Let us know where you're joining from because my mom and dad are always watching and they like to see where everybody's joining from.
Uh-huh.
Hey, Deshaun's mom, dad, y'all did a good
Yeah,
job.
love you guys.
All right. Cool. So I'm getting to kind of hijack tail along from last week's stream. As I understand, Cote, you are interested in building an intelligent role playing system.
Exactly. That's it.
Very
And I
good.
think after talking with you and Deshaun and my own poking around and stuff, it seems like this whole agentic AI thing would be perfect for playing Dungeons and Dragons with AI stuff, right? And I think that would be really exciting is if you look at Anthropic's MCP, which always is it Model Context Protocol. I always forget what
That's
the C
right.
stands for. And it seems like I was going over this with Deshaun at the end of last episode, which is just covering the basics because I haven't programmed since 2005. So I don't really know what an annotation is, but now I've got a handle on it. And it seems like I forget if it was you or someone else, but if you think about uh, what you can do with MCP, is you have like a bag of tools that you give the AI interface, and in our case, Claude. And so when you think about what you do during role playing during D&D, there's a lot of tools, lots of things that you could program, and on its own the chat interfaces for AIs that don't really do very much. So you end up having to, as I think about it, you're like the meat sack agentic AI. Like I have to keep track of lots of stuff and guide it and say do this and do that. But I'm thinking if you make all these tiny little this bag of tools and you hook it up to Claude, thanks to MCP being on there, you could start to I don't know. I think it would make it a lot better than it has been over the past couple of years, which is great, but it will be a leap forward. And you're the one who knows how to do this, and that's why you're here.
Well, fantastic. Very good. Yeah. So just to review, basically, just like you said, under a traditional model, maybe, what I'm sure we've seen Deshaun do before is that you like code a Spring AI app and you provide it kind of a curated experience to the end user. So Deshaun might select some RAG processes, some functions, some backend tools that he wants to provide to the customer, and then the customer starts up the application, and that's what they get access to, which is going to be the right solution for a lot of problems. But MCP, Model Context Protocol, provides kind of a different approach. It basically says, hey, exactly like Coté say, we're going to create a set of specialized tools, and then we're going to allow the end user to start up an MCP client, someone who knows how to consume these tools. And then they get to build their own AI system because they get to choose which tools they want, stick them all in that bag together. And what's really cool about the LLMs is that it becomes really smart at figuring out, hey, what tool or combination of tools do I need to use in order to solve a particular problem and to be able to progress things forward.
Right.
And so what's really exciting is this model context protocol specification. What kind of enables this workflow is only, shoot, let me do the math here. It's barely 2 months old, barely 2 months old. And already the Spring team has put out an extension to the Spring AI project called Spring AI MCP that makes it incredibly easy to build these little tools that plug into your backend system. So, I've been playing around with creating tools to talk to Cloud Foundry, to talk to Spring Application Advisor, which you've seen Deshaun show a whole lot over there. And I've been so impressed with the ease of use. And it's really easy for anybody watching to build these tools to talk to their backend systems. And we're going to prove it because we're going to solve or begin to work on Coté's problem here in terms of how to build a role-playing game system.
Yeah, this is going to be some real business value, some real enterprise-grade stuff.
Exactly.
Yes.
Fantastic.
And we have the EUC Nerdfest demo channel showing up. Our friends from
guys.
ITQ.
We have all our friends from EUC and India
And
here because
it's that time.
It's too early for.
If I can interject some commentary here, right? Like, just there's one thing you mentioned, I think that is potentially very interesting about applying this to D&D, and then the other than it being fun, like the reason I think it's good to use D&D as an example of this is if you think about it, it's like a extremely regulated, highly governed, rules-focused system that also requires a lot of adaptability and just like, I don't know what the equivalent of imagination is in business talk, but just like imagination and just like figuring out what's going on, right? So like, it's kind of analogous to like what you would do any given day in like a business environment with software. And so like, if you can kind of figure out the same patterns, I think you can start to learn like how you would apply AI and agentic AI to business problems. And then getting to it, the thing that you kind of like touched on that I think will be most interesting to see is not only is is this a bag of tools that I could instruct the AI to use, but it should kind of figure out what to do on its own, right? Like it should say, like, if I have all these tools and I know the rule system that I'm existing in, that means I need to go use this one that determines what goblins do, or I need to go use this one that says if you're walking around in a city, here's what you do. Similar to like if I'm walking in a warehouse, here's what I need to do, or if I encounter a whatever, like, so that's what would be fun to see if it actually works out that way.
Absolutely. I think this makes sense. Well, let me go ahead and just dive in here. We're going to go ahead and create from scratch a new project, and we're going to call this Roleplay MCP. So this is going to be our role-playing model context protocol server here. Oh, and I guess we should go ahead and mention real quick, because you brought up a great point on the last stream, Coté, which is that the term server can sometimes be confusing to new users. When you and I talk about servers, we think about we think about as like a remote web server that you're hitting. And the fact is that these MCP servers are compiled as kind of like redistributable components that users, like what we're going to do today is we're going to take these components, download them onto our local machine, and run them there. So you can think of them more like ActiveX components or something, right? It's just like components you stick into your browser or whatever and get ready. So they still require...
I think of them as just plugins, which maybe is a demeaning term, but it's just like, it's a plugin.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. It does require a client to coordinate them, so that's why they're called servers, but just to clear that up. So this is going to be our Roleplay MCP project. I'm going to go ahead and do Maven. I think I'll call this Tanzu instead of Tranzu. And build a jar here. And it's just, we're going to go and start off with a regular Spring Boot project. So some things to note about this here is that where did sorry, I got a little script video somewhere. Where did it go? All right. Let's see, I lost my script, so we're gonna do this live.
Do it.
All right.
I believe in you.
Thank you. All right. So what we're gonna do here is one thing to notice is that this server is going to be communicating with streaming to the client. So we're gonna go ahead and we're not going to run Spring MVC web controllers here. We're going to go ahead and say that our Spring web application type is none. So the MCP server itself, that component is going to set up the handler for web MVC. We're not going to create our own endpoints on here, and we're going to disable standard IO logging, because anything that we log is going to stream to the client. And if we start putting our Spring banner and a bunch of random messages to the client, it's going to get all confused here. So we can use logger interface to output messages, and that'll get out to this logging file name here. But we can't output the system out print line. You're going to confuse the client. You're going to make things very unhappy.
And so just to make sure my assumptions are correct about reading all this, right? So we're going to make this server, this plugin, and we're going to have the Claude desktop app, and basically, and this next part is what it'll be great to see reveal the mystery of how you do it. But you're going to do a little bit of configuration that will, and this is the part I don't know for sure, but I'm just going to say it anyways. And you're going to tell Claude how to start up this Spring Boot application. And then the way it's going to communicate with it will be through, standard in and standard out. And that's why it's important to turn off logging, because basically Claude will send some commands like, hey, do a thing. And then the Spring Boot app is going to run, and it's going to write out, hey, here's what I did. And then then you're kind of off to the races.
That's right. And the method of communication is going to be a JSON schema. So there's a JSON specification that's going to use to communicate back and forth, and we'll see how that works. And so that basically means everything we need to stream out through system out, standard out, needs to be JSON. If we start putting non-JSON stuff out, it's going to say, I don't know what this is. I'm getting all confused here. Actually, it supports a second method of communication, but we'll talk about that in just a minute. First, let's go ahead and set up our POM XML file. So we're going to tell it that this Spring AI MCP project is brand new. It's not part of the core Spring AI yet. So we're going to go ahead and download that separately here. And we're going to tell it to grab the Spring AI MCP BOM to download that into our project. And then we are going to grab the transports that we support. So this is what I was just mentioning. So one transport that we support is going to be standard IO. The other that is supported is SSE, server-side events, and that allows for a streaming model as opposed to a synchronous model. Now, we're not probably actually going to do SSE today, but it's good practice for your server to support both models, because that way the client gets to choose which model it wants to use. So our client, we're already going to tell it to use standard IO today, but if somebody else wants to download your role-playing MCP server and use it in their environment, and they're using server-side events on the client, we want to make sure we support that so that they have a good experience. So we'll go ahead and download the SSE protocol here as well. And then, of course, we're going to download the Spring AI MCP project to be able to do the goodness. And then we'll go ahead and grab our repositories so that we can have access to the milestones and the snapshot repositories as needed here. So go ahead and tell me.
Corby, would you mind
Yes.
bumping up your font size?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I absolutely will. Let me.
Thanks, Ambu.
What's the right way to do this in IntelliJ?
Double shift, shift.
Shift.
And then type zoom.
Zoom. Thank you. All right, and we'll zoom in IDE. That sounds like a good one. All right, and zoom in more.
Maybe one more.
One more. Absolutely. Is that better? One more.
Let's see, Ambu. What do you think?
All right, that's all you get. That's all you get.
Okay. All right. Deal. We'll take it.
All right. So now we'll go ahead and create the configuration for our MCP server. So we're running a regular Spring Boot application, right? And let's go ahead and create a configuration class. So this will be our MCP server config.
Dr. Mark Pollock says, good luck. It's a bit early for me to watch as he's driving his kids to school, but thanks for doing this. So,
wow. My goodness. Well, thank you. Yeah, I can't see the chat right now, so I didn't know I was being joined by royalty. This is very exciting. I'm nervous. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and set up my configuration class here. And we'll go ahead and put in some configuration beans. So these beans here are the transport configuration beans for our two models, right? So when we start this up, there needs to be a transport set. If the transport is standard IO, then we're going to inject the MCP server configuration with a standard IO transport. And if it's SSE, then we're going to create the mappings and routers for the server side event transport. Again, we're probably not going to use SSE today, but it's always good practices to support both models in your MCP server so your end users have a good experience. And then for our tests, we're going to want to let's go ahead and create one of those transports needs to be set on startup. So if we want to make sure that our tests succeed, let's go ahead and set the model in the application test properties here. So if I look at my MCP, this is going to be transport.mode. I'm going to set transport.mode to, oops, wrong one. Let's go to application test. Transport.mode to standard IO. And so that should make sure that when the test run, it's set and they won't.
Do we have to do that?
Let's see.
In application properties as well?
No, because we're going to do it. We're going to do it a different way in application properties, but a different way when we run it standalone. You can do that, but in fact, I'm not even sure.
That would eliminate the option for doing the SSE transport.
It would not, because when our MCP client is going to specify which option we want. So if we want, we can. Let's go ahead and try that. Let's go and default to standard IO, but in our MCP client, you always have the option to override it.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. It
probably won't hurt.
Okay, so let's go ahead and actually configure our MCP server itself. So we have our MCP sync server here, and see if IntelliJ can find the imports for this. Yeah, that looks good. All right. So when we set up our MCP server, then we can set up the characteristics of our server. And right now, what we're configuring is the ability to set up tools, which are going to be the little plugin functions that we're providing in our server. And that's what we're going to spend most of our time on today. We're enable logging support. The MCP specification allows for some other characteristics, including resources and prompts. But that's really out of scope for what we're doing today. But if I wanted to, I could add those into the server as well. So this is going to be our role-playing MCP server, version 1.0. And so we've now done everything we need to stand up kind of a baseline MCP server that does absolutely nothing. So let's go ahead and start creating the functions, the tools that we want to add to our role-playing server. And I'm going to kind of piggyback on what how Coté got started last week, and we're going to go and start off with a dice rolling tool here. So we'll go ahead and create a class. This is going to be our we'll call this our role play, and these will be role play functions. So we're going to create the function first, and then we'll plug it. We'll configure it as a tool that the MCP server can use here. All right, we're going to make this a component so that we can wire it into our configuration class. And oh no, we're going to have to figure out how to roll dice here. So why don't we go ahead and go to our friendly AI, and we'll say write a Java function that accepts a dice notation string.
Okay, we didn't publish our magic, our craft last week. We needed to put that on the GitHub.
That's right.
Yeah.
We suffer
spent so much
from
time on it.
we suffered from enterprise programmer paranoia, where we're like, oh, it's not perfect yet, so we don't want to put it out there. We'll just keep it to ourselves.
You know me so well.
All right.
But as Corby's doing, thanks to Claude, it doesn't really matter. There's a zillion ways to roll dice, and we'll just use whatever works.
No need for programming anymore. AI does it all.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, this one does standard dice notation. Does it handle? Okay, is so interesting. Let's say make sure to handle modifiers.
Did you see that? Did you see that, Coté?
Example 2d6 plus 2. Last time I ran this, it did this out of the box for me, but I think it needs to. All right. Okay, so it tells me it's going to work, and I believe it. So let's go ahead and grab our method here and put it into our class. So we'll go ahead and create this as a private method here. All right, so now we have our method, and we're going to need to be able to publish it to MCP as a integrated with the tool specification there. So the way that we do this is that we're going to create a Java util function, and our Java util function is going to return this MCP call tool result that allows MCP to take the function and process as a tool. So this is kind of JSON under the covers here. So let's get these imports in. There we are. So the way the MCP client is going to invoke this as a JSON request, and we can extract the arguments from the request. Like that. So it's going to pass in the arguments here, and then we can pull them out of the JSON request like that. And then we're going to return this MCP content response. So we're going to take our dice, and we're going to roll it with the input provided. And then we're going to get the result here from the roll. And then we're going to take this result and stick it into our MCP content result. And the MCP content right now supports two types of results, a text or an image. So we're going to do this as a text result here. So we're going to say
image. That could be fun. Huh.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Give me a picture of that goblin that's hiding in the woods.
Exactly. So we'll have to do that for an advanced exercise here.
Or you could break up a map into things that only the players would say at any given time, and then like depending on where they are, you can return that chunk of the map so that there's that like a visual for it.
That is good. That is solid.
All right. So now we've taken our dice roll function and we've rolled it into a format where the MCP client can consume it and talk through their JSON schema here. So we'll go back to our MCP server and we will actually create the MCP tool. So this is going to be our roll dice tool. Now, one of the things we're going to do here is we're going to provide both method and parameter descriptions. And these are going to be natural language descriptions that are going to be clues to the LLM, which is it's going to provide additional context in terms of when and how we should use this tool. And that's a really important process about getting kind of the best results from these types of servers. Is we're going to use it, and sometimes we're going to watch it work, and we're going to see maybe it makes some reasonable assumptions that are not what we want it to do or we consider mistakes. And so we go back and we kind of provide additional coaching, or prompting to the tool to teach it how we want it to work. And this is the mechanism that we do this. So this is going to be the method description is going to be roll dice as this, per the dice notation, output the sum of the dice rolls, and then we can provide additional context. We can say if you roll a 20 on a 20-sided die, report the result as a critical hit. It's just an example of the type of coaching you can do here. All right, so then we're going to say this is going to be our roll dice tool, and we're going to grab this from our role play functions. That'll be our roll dice function. Did I inject? Oh, I didn't even remember doing that. Did we inject the role play functions, or did it do that for me? IntelliJ is so smart. Wow, how about that? Okay, and then what did I call this here? This is going to be our roll dice function. There. All right, so now we have this tool, and we've registered the method name, expected class or package. What did I do here? Am I missing something?
Now, while he's debugging this, Deshaun, I would think, well, not I would think, like my preference would be like instead of specifying the stuff in code, which of course you do when you're learning and demoing it, right? That you would have some kind of thing where basically whenever I'm doing this, I'm doing it in some other file, or I might also like, and an intermediate thing would be like in the way that Spring works now since 2005. I would like be using annotations in that little dice roller thing that Corby had that basically had this stuff in it, and then magic, right? So that I don't really like ever do this thing that we're seeing on my own.
Yeah, I think that's a definite possibility. The problem is he's also describing like what's coming back.
Right.
We got to describe the form of the data.
Right. Right. And then what you would do in this role playing bag of tools. So, for example, there's often a time where you're like, I want 3 words to inspire something new. You would just have like a generic thing that was like, give me the 3-word tool, and
Yep.
with that, you would just be able to dump a bunch of
Yep.
whatever JSON or text files or CSV files that it would just suck up to do that for you. And you could even specify like, here's a text file that says this is for a non-player character. Here's like 500 3-word things, and it would just like suck that in and know how to wire stuff up for you.
Yeah, we can do that.
All right. So we've built a tool. Also in the JSON, I put the notation for the method argument, and then you can provide additional context there.
Right.
And I should mention, this is a early version of the Spring AI MCP project, right? This is version 0.6. The spec is just a couple months old. It probably it probably feels a little awkward to be sitting there hand coding JSON. I think we're going to see, the Spring engineers know how to provide a developer experience that's going to be,
of course,
a little more intelligent here.
I think what's really helpful about this is seeing it all in one place, right? Like, what I was going over, there is, once you know what's happening, there's a beauty and efficiency to it. But you've got to do your own agentic stuff to piece together all these files to realize what's happening. But here, you're just like, I know exactly what's happening. And to that point, like, so this, like, in that you're calling this the dice notation thing, that maps to where you defined a parameter somewhere else that says dice notation. Like, that is a nice thing. It's just extracting all that for you. You don't have to parse through the JSON to figure out what's happening.
Yeah. So this,
like right there.
Yeah, this guy maps to this guy, and that's how you do the method call here. So in our MCP server configuration, we're now going to take this tool, the roll dice tool, and we're going to add it to our registration here. And as soon as I figure out what this issue is, then we will be all ready to go. So what is going on here? Is there something that's not imported? What is it complaining about here? So we should have the MCP sync server. I think we're missing an import here. No, it's got that one. Okay, so we've got the MCP server features, transport, schema, server MCP transport. Looking good. What is it complaining about here? Let's try and do a quick build.
Oh, is it trying to return? Oh no, it's returning a string, right?
Yeah.
Sync tool registration here.
All right. So it says symbol. Well, it cannot find symbol. So it's looking for the symbol Java util.
Yeah. Here, your
MCP server features. Is that what it's complaining about?
In
what
your
is the
private
symbol
class, it says you're saying you want an MCP server features.sync tool registration.
Right.
And that is a class. And then down below, you're saying, hey, return this new MCP server features dot sync tool registration. Do we need those parentheses there?
We do. We do.
After the MCP server features?
Yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry, Deshaun. Thank God. That's why I had it. Perfect. We got it.
Teamwork.
Thank you very much. Better than AI assistant, Deshaun. Thank you very much.
Right. In this case, we didn't need a method to the madness.
All right. We did it. Very good. Okay, so now we've got a compiled server. So now we're going to select an MCP client. So remember, MCP is a open specification, and you have your choice of MCP clients, and then the MCP client can decide, what transport they want to use and get things plugged in. But being 2 months old, there's a relatively limited selection.
We're still walking like this. We're still
Exactly,
like this.
exactly.
Yeah.
Now, one thing is that you can create a programmatic client, and Spring AI MCP allows you to do that. So if we wanted to create our own custom experience, we could actually build our own MCP client using the libraries there. But we are going to use Claude, because Anthropic, who created the specification, unsurprisingly has created a very attractive MCP client that integrates cleanly into our chat experience. It makes it very easy to watch and demo. And so we're going to go ahead and use this one here. So if you look in my Claude, my MCP client, you see I actually have a bunch of plugins that I've already stood up, things like Cloud Foundry and App Advisor and Spring Project information and stuff like that, that integrates into here. And that's configured through a configuration file. But we're going to go ahead and get rid of those right now. We're not going to use those for what we're doing here. So here's my Claude configuration. It says, hey, here's all the MCP servers I want access to in here, and let's go ahead and dump them.
So I can have multiple MCP servers connected to this one interface. So I'm interfacing with Claude, and I'm saying, hey, now I've walked into a dungeon and I need to do something, or I meet a hairy but weak goblin.
That's
and
right.
I need to do something. So I have to roll a dice to see. I decide to pull out my trusty rock, and I want to use my trusty rock. So I roll a dice to see, did it work? But I could have
that's exactly right. And you know, you probably have multiple tools, right? So you probably use one of Coté's tools to actually generate that random encounter, and then Coté also coached it to use the 5e rule set for Dungeons and Dragons, and so as it progresses the encounter, it decides for itself, hey, now I need to pull in that dice rolling tool and be able to progress the encounter that way here. So we're
and do you think the best practice is to have a bunch of small discrete tools, or like one thing that's a suite of tools?
Yeah, no. These are components, and you want to do refactoring. So what you need to think of is, when am I delivering a discrete set of functionality that someone might want to mix and match with something else, right? So when we do a dice rolling server, that's something that people are going to want to plug into all kinds of things, whether they're playing Dungeons and Dragons or Monopoly or whatever. These are things that they're going to plug in and use independently.
Yes.
But then you have your
scene set or
encounter generation server or whatever. That's something that they will want to plug in separately, because maybe they want to use your generation encounter or one for a different role-playing system or what have you. So every time you build a piece of functionality that someone might want to mix and match in their own bag of tools, then that should be its own server.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because that's the power of MCP, is that people can kind of compose and create their own AI solutions using their preferred mix of tools.
And
go ahead. And then also whatever, to use the confusing terminology, when the client uses the server, right?
Yes.
When the agentic like workflow is happening, also if you have a bunch of discrete tools, it has more there's more possibility that it can kind of like use different functionality from each, right? Like it maybe is, instead of saying like, you've got this gigantic multi-tool that can do these 50 different things, that might be a little more confusing than like, you've got 50 different tools that you can figure out how to mix and match and apply, instead of always pulling the multi-tool out.
And what we did was we described what this server was offering. We said, hey, this server provides the dice roll. Right. So as he's going through things, whether he's playing Dungeons and Dragons or not, as he's using Claude, if he ever says something about a dice roll, then it's going to reach over.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It doesn't know what context he's in, but we've described, oh, hey, I got this thing. So if you're playing another game, interacting with Claude, and you need, like, it's just automatically, oh yeah, I got your dice roll.
Yeah.
That's like.
All right. So let's go ahead and configure our server. So we're going to tell Claude right now, you've got one MCP server. It's going to be our role-playing server. We're going to use that standard IO transport. We're going to output to this log file if we need to debug anything in here. And then let's go ahead and point it to our roleplay MCP server, and we'll point it to our jar file. So basically here we're giving it the jar file to run. So before the Spring team came along, you're always specifying a Python or a Node distributable or TypeScript or whatever distributable for use to these servers, and that was the way that data science nerds were building out these components. But now us enterprise nerds can build out the components with Java and Spring and be able to provide our integrations here. So that's what the Spring AI MCP project has done for us here. So I'm going to go ahead and quit Claude so that it can load the new configuration of tools. And let's see how it works. I'm going to bring it on up. Okay, so Claude is started up and it's loaded the tools now, and it actually says instead of 39 tools like I had before, I have one MCP tool available, and that tool is our roll dice tool here.
Right on.
So we can go ahead and tell it, hey, roll D20. Okay, so now what it's going to do is it's going to ask me permission to use the tool. And that's a pretty good practice, because I kind of mentioned before that these MCP servers are kind of like ActiveX components. And I mean that in the worst sense, that you have when Internet Explorer first started supporting ActiveX components, people put out ActiveX components and they had all kinds of wild permissions. They could look at files in your hard drive. They could reach out on the internet. They could do all kinds of crazy things. And in this, the MCP spec is early. I don't think the security permissions are incredibly mature at this point. And I can do some pretty crazy things. So kids, do not download and install MCP servers from unknown sources. Right now, they can do all kinds of things, and they're even creepier than ActiveX components, because they are communicating with you and maybe trying to get interesting information. So it's asking me first, hey, do I trust this tool? Am I okay with running this tool? Malicious servers could do all kinds of bad things, but yeah, we like our MCP tool. So let's go ahead. We're going to allow this tool to run, and it's going to give us a 14 here. And so then we're going to say, hey, let's do 2d6 plus 2 over here, and it's going to give us 13. Okay, so these all seems pretty reasonable functions here on this.
Yeah.
And then of course the I would love to get a critical. What do you think my chances are of getting
1 in 20?
Yeah, but what are the chances that I'm going to get a critical?
Now maybe to test out the AI part, what if you give it like phrased in D&D like a task? Like
Yes.
roll me a let's see, roll me a stealth check with a DC of 15.
I love it. Okay.
Like I'm playing D&D with a character that has proficiency in stealth, so I get a +3 modifier, and so roll me a stealth check with the 15 DC. Oh, even better. You have it.
I have no idea what it's going to do. Let's give it let's see what it does here. All right. So it did it. So it's going to say, there you go. A level 1 character with proficiency would add their modifier.
Yeah. It just made up a dexterity. Yeah. It figured one out.
My
made it up.
Dexterity is 18.
Oh, look at you.
Obviously.
He's got a
There you go,
charisma
your
of 9,
modifier.
but a dexterity of 18.
I did it. I successfully
that.
sneaked up on the goblin.
See, that's pretty amazing right there.
Yes. Yes, Coté. Based on what you've seen here, is your solo D&D with AI, is it going to be more exciting? Do you think you
I
can
think so.
replicate what we've
I
done
mean,
here?
this is only rolling dice, but what we just saw is pretty complicated stuff, right? And then
Yeah.
so for like this might be a good use case to test out because figuring out sneaking around is notoriously vague and ambiguous and weird
Yeah.
in the fifth edition of D&D. And so there's a few other plugins you could make it would be interesting to see if it considers using those, right? Like one I was talking about with Corby a while ago is the type of lighting that you're in can
Ah.
determine if you can sneak or not, right? And so it should know if you're in like bright light or
Yeah.
dim light or darkness.
Yeah.
And
In
like
my head, there was like a scene setter.
exactly. And so that
This.
would that like so that you would have that kind of thing. And then
Yeah.
there's even another thing which would be like, so DC means difficulty class, and it's just like how difficult it is to do something. And so that could be a whole other thing that you have. Just
Jim was
like
like, that's not good
trying
enough.
to figure that out. But anyways, so there's all these little things, and I think that's probably also where having discrete servers or plugins would be useful. Is you can break down all these problems into those little parts, which would be fun.
Yeah. Pink Emma's comment is like, hey, now do the D&D 3.5e or 3.5e grappling
Edition,
rules.
yeah. I don't know what those are, but I think 3.5 edition is complicated.
Yeah, but
and how to do things.
the thing is, those rules are in a lot of these LLMs.
Right, as we just saw, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the good start there, and so very exciting.
Yeah, Corby said he'll be right back, but in my head is already like racing on all the things that you could add here. Seeing his list of servers that he has running, that already is just like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. In my head, where I'm at is like, I want that to connect to my calendar.
Right,
For things I'm
exactly.
like, hey, should I be doing this? Should I be working on this? And let it see my calendar.
And like the first thing one of the first things I would want to implement is what I would call like a session summarizer. And so this is one of those meat sack agentic things I do is like eventually you run out of the context window and your AI chat session just gets tired.
Yeah.
Right. And so you got to start over again in a fresh one.
Yep.
But if you think about it, so one of the things you do in agentic AI is you have context or memories, right? Like it needs to keep track of that.
Mm-hmm.
Is you have to somehow transport that context, the state of the game, to the new chat session, right? So you could make a pretty good, probably you could make a pretty good server here.
Yep.
That it would summarize it and send it and then persist it to disk. And then even do more work. Like you could really have a pretty good report and figure out what to do with that.
Yeah. Was I talking to you about a state machine?
Right, exactly. And that's another thing to do that I think you could do here that we haven't seen is if you can chain together a lot of these things, then you can start to do all sorts of crazy stuff, right? Which would be fascinating.
Yes.
So Cote's, you've got blog and video that I've really enjoyed that kind of describes what you've learned to do prompting to get an LLM to help guide you through one of these adventures. And I'd love to work with you to start bringing that in as an MCP server.
Yeah. All that stuff would be cool. We can have a little
have something that guides through the tools, and then is able to invoke things like the roll dice tool or the lighting tool or the random encounter tool or whatever it is that you want to do, and have it and watch how it kind of puts all the pieces together.
Yeah, that would be cool. I think that's the goal. And now I think the part that was missing when Deshaun and I were looking at it last time was that little config file. and then also the MCP stuff, right? Is just like, but if we've got that, I think, and that's why the dice roller thing is good. Is it's like, it's pretty much the skeleton. It's like the pet shop or the pet clinic of all the rest of this stuff. You can just copy and paste and expand and base it all on how that stuff.
And
works.
I'm sure that the configuration will get easier.
Yeah, sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But that being said, I mean, it's
pretty-
easy to complain about that, but look what
Yeah.
we did in 30 minutes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we got this thing up and running, and you probably saw at the beginning of the stream a bunch of those other servers that I built. I built
Yeah,
those
that was
pretty fast.
for me. Like seeing your list of other servers, that's what got my head racing. Can we go back to the config that we did for this one, where
Absolutely.
we told the client where this code is? So the client, what we gave to Claude Desktop was
Oh, I'm sorry. The
Claude Desktop config
Claude
JSON.
Desktop. Excuse me. Yes, absolutely. So all we basically did here was we told it how to launch a MCP server, and we assumed that MCP server is compliant. Basically, it knows how to service those JSON schema requests and get it in here. So we just said, hey, Java minus jar, and if you look at, you can see there's a whole host of these servers available on the internet that you can grab from a catalog, and you can download and run untrusted here.
Sounds
So here's one of the catalogs. It's called Pulse MCP. So actually, these are all from known vendors and stuff. So I love this JetBrains IDE one. This is a wonderful server. I just plug that into Claude, and then I can be working on code, and I can start asking it questions about my code, or ask it to write code, or ask it to review my Git commit history, or do all kinds of things in here.
so that
just
one
because a pair programmer.
is it a jar that you're pulling down?
This one is not a jar because before Spring AI MCP, people did not do these in Java. It was written in Java in TypeScript, and so instead of a Java minus jar command in the config, you will see a npx command to load the node executable and get things running here.
Okay.
But they're ones for interacting with your file system, for interacting with databases, for controlling your browser. There's just a whole host of these tools. And again, the end user has the ability to go on in and kind of create their own AI experience. I use the Google Maps one sometimes in here, but and we're just very early in the process, so you can imagine this ecosystem is going to get very rich.
Yeah, it's like adding just command line tools to whatever you're here to Claude, but whatever you want your client to be to call out to this stuff, which makes sense. And to the point you keep making, it's also like adding command line tools in that you can do whatever you want if you have the right access. So it's not isolated, but which is fine to add that in later, right? Because you can imagine the usual sandboxing and guardrails you would put up around anything you would do with this, however that magic works. So yeah, that's super cool.
That is. I'm just super impressed. Super impressed all the way around.
So from here, maybe we need to have some more sessions. We'll work on some very brief specs. Maybe we can come up with like here's 3 more tools, and then we can have some experiments. Like since you've watched the videos, maybe what we should do is we can use the base case is Goblin Ambush, and we'll just have a character, and then they're going down the road. We'll see what happens. Like what would a dungeon master need to run a Goblin Ambush scene successfully, and maybe we give it those tools and see if it figures it out.
Well, I tell you what, Corby, if you wouldn't mind coming back, I know it's early, but if we could do this again next week, I think that'd be fun to just kind of like take the next step on this. And
I agree.
Build things out. I have some more questions, but yeah, this is fun. I learned a lot. Thank you so much for joining and giving us this great lesson. It is moving fast. My mind is racing. Literally, my mind is racing. I'm taking notes. Like I need to do more of this. I had a misconception, right, about what this was going to look like architectural wise. So now I'm trying to think when I want to take this to production, when I want to use my my application, and I want to let my application use LLMs and inject these kinds of features into it. Not me typing in Claude Desktop. What does that look like? So yeah, my mind is racing. There's more because I want to get this deployed. I want it to be usable. Maybe I want to make it a website, right? That hey, play solo D&D. And I want that to be an app experience, not a Claude Desktop and you pull down the jars, but an app experience where, hey, here we are. Here's the scene. Go, right? Here's the location. It's this time of day. Here's the light. And here's your character. What's next?
Yeah. And it's important to remember MCP is not the answer to every single problem, right? So what you just described, Deshaun, might not be a model context protocol solution. It might be just using Spring AI to build your own curated web app experience.
Yeah.
And just simply using regular Spring AI function calls instead of registering tools. Because either way, it works. The LLM can figure out, hey, here's my list of functions that I can invoke and use and be able to solve the problems. The advantage of the MCP tools is that you just have this rich catalog of third-party tools that have already been built for you.
Yep.
And if you trust them, then it's very plug and play. It's very easy to compose brand new experiences.
Yeah. The 3.5E rules versus the 5E rules, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, we got stuff. There's a lot of air there. That's for sure. It's exciting times. Exciting times. Pink Emma always like to say, my good friend and coworker, ChatGPT. Thanks for being here, Pink Emma. But yeah, this was fun. I like this. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and I'll throw it out there. If it works for everybody, let's do this again. Let's pick up where we are. And you know what else we'll do? We're going to check this into GitHub so that everybody that's watching can see the example that we built. And we'll go from there.
Sounds perfect.
Everybody, like that was a solid, look at that, nice, tight, on schedule. Everybody, thanks so much for joining. I'll drop this down. And yeah, thank you, everybody. Corby.
Yeah, it was great.
Excellent job. This was a pleasure.
Good enterprise nerd level stuff.
Enterprise nerd. That's like a new. I'm gonna put that in my back pocket. Enterprise nerd stuff. So yeah. All right. Well, everybody. Yeah. Hopefully we'll do this again next week. Ambu says MCP seems advanced tooling support. Yeah. Like that's what we're doing. It opens the door from some really interesting additions to what we're doing with AI. So yeah. Join us next week. And yeah. For now, take care, everybody. We'll see you again soon.
Bye.
Thanks, y'all.